Why do so many devout souls live tormented by anxiety, inner emptiness, and the feeling that God has abandoned them? Teresa of Avila knew this spiritual hell and discovered the secret that transforms the dark night into a portal of light. It is not more prayer, it is not more penance. It is something that most Christians completely ignore, but that changes everything when understood. For centuries, Teresa's most profound teachings remained hidden in convents, read only by religious people. But today, these mystical truths need to reach every soul that suffers in silence, every heart that prays without feeling anything, every mind that finds no peace. Teresa did not write for perfect saints, she wrote for wounded, weary souls, desperate for a true encounter with God in this content. You will discover the 10 Teresian secrets that transform suffering into holiness, emptiness into fullness, fear into unwavering trust. Each teaching comes directly from the works of Saint Teresa, the Interior Castle, the Book of Life, the Way of Perfection, and each carries the power to free your soul from the prison of anxiety. This is not theory. It is a lived path, tested and proven by a woman who crossed spiritual hell and found God on the other side. If you feel your prayers are going nowhere, if peace seems impossible, if the dark night of the soul is consuming your faith, this content is for you. Teresa is about to reveal what changed her life. And it can change yours too. Stay until the end, because the last secret is the most powerful of all. And leave a comment. Have you ever experienced the dark night of the soul? How did your faith withstand it? Saint Teresa's secret, how the dark night purifies the third mansion. The soul that dwells in the third mansion knows well the path of prayer, but still clings to sensory consolations. Teresa teaches that God, in his infinite wisdom, withdraws these sweetnesses not out of abandonment, but out of purifying love. It is in aridity that the roots of faith deepen, far from the surface of fleeting emotions. Divine silence is not absence, it is the chisel that sculpts the soul to receive more. In this painful passage, the mind is agitated, the heart contracts, and the person feels as if praying into emptiness. But Teresa reveals, it is precisely here that God works in the deepest layers, detaching the soul from itself. Spiritual desolation is not punishment, it is an invitation. It is the moment when the human will surrenders and the divine will begins to reign without resistance. Whoever crosses this dark night with confidence discovers that peace does not come from feeling, but from remaining. The third dwelling place is a school of fidelity, praying without pleasure, loving without reward, trusting without seeing. And so, silently, the soul prepares itself for the prayer of quietude that awaits it in the fourth dwelling place where God no longer consoles. But dwell. Why your soul feels empty. Teresa's teaching on divine absence. Teresa deeply understood the emptiness of the soul. In her Book of Life, she describes long periods when God seemed distant, deaf to her pleas, absent from her prayers. It was not divine coldness, but mystical pedagogy. God withdraws so that the soul may learn to seek Him for Himself, not for the consolations He gives. Emptiness is not a sign of abandonment, it is a sign that something greater is being prepared within. This feeling of divine absence empties the soul of its own constructs, its limited images of God, its childish expectations. Teresa teaches that the soul needs to be emptied in order to be filled. like a chalice that needs to be empty to receive new wine. The human heart needs this inner solitude to welcome the divine presence in a purer, truer, deeper way. When the soul feels empty, it should not flee or despair. It should remain in prayer, even without feeling anything, trusting that God is working in the silence. Teresa lived this and testified, "Emptiness is the womb where true union is born." It is in the darkness that the eyes of the soul open to a light that does not come from the senses, but from God himself dwelling in the center of being. The neuroscience of Teresa's prayer of quiet, calming the anxious mind in the fourth dwelling place. Teresa describes the prayer of stillness, a state in which the soul rests in God without its own effort. The powers of the mind memory, understanding, will begin to quiet down, and the person experiences a peace that does not come from within. It is not sleep, it is not distraction, but a gentle suspension where God acts and the soul simply receives. It is as if the heart finally stops struggling and lets itself be cradled by the divine presence. In this state of stillness, the anxious mind finds true rest. Racing thoughts slow down, breathing deepens, and an inexplicable serenity takes hold of the being. Teresa teaches that this prayer cannot be forced. It is a gift, not something one conquers. But the soul can prepare itself through silence, through renouncing control, through trusting that God is present even when nothing is felt. Those who experience the prayer of stillness discover that God's peace does not depend on external circumstances. It is an inner anchor that remains even amidst life's storms. Teresa experienced this during the most difficult moments of her journey. And she teaches, the soul that learns to rest in God finds a refuge that no anxiety can steal. It is there, in that loving silence, that fear dissolves and trust flourishes. From chaos to castle, Teresa's method for entering your inner sanctuary. Teresa teaches that the soul is like a diamond castle, with many inner mansions, and at its center dwells God. But most people live in the outer mansions, distracted by the noise of the world, by fragmented thoughts, by worries that never cease. Entering the castle is returning home. It is withdrawing from dispersion and walking inward, where true peace awaits. It is not an escape from reality, but an encounter with the deepest reality. The first step is recollection, closing the doors of the senses, quieting the body, silencing the mind. Teresa recommends starting with small moments of solitude, where the person withdraws from external noise and learns to be with themselves before God. It is not easy. The mind resists. Distractions arise, discomfort appears. But with patience and perseverance, the soul learns to inhabit its own interior, recognizing that there lies the hiding place of the Almighty. Those who practice this daily reflection discover that the inner castle is not a distant place, but a constant presence. In the midst of the chaos of routine, it is possible to turn inward for a moment and find God waiting. Teresa lived amidst foundations, travels, conflicts, and yet she inhabited her inner castle. She teaches peace is not in changing circumstances, but in learning to enter the dwelling where God already is, always has been, and always will be. Saint Teresa's illness and inner collapse. When the body breaks, the soul awakens. Teresa experienced total collapse. In her early 20s, a mysterious illness left her paralyzed, in unbearable pain, on the verge of death. Her body became a prison, her strength vanished, and she lost control of everything. But it was precisely in this abyss of fragility that God found her in the most profound way. When the body breaks and human will can no longer sustain anything, the soul opens itself to a force that is not its own and discovers that it has always been sustained by invisible hands on that bed of suffering. Teresa learned to surrender. There were no more plans to make, achievements to attain, or image to maintain. There was only the nakedness of her soul before God, without masks, without defenses. And it was there, in total powerlessness, that she experienced divine mercy in a visceral way. The suffering was not immediately removed, but transformed into a portal, a place where the presence of God became more real than the pain itself. Those who experience physical or emotional collapse can learn from Teresa. The breakdown is not the end. It is the beginning of something new. When the ego shatters and control dissolves, God can finally rebuild the soul on eternal foundations. Teresa teaches that suffering accepted with trust does not destroy, it purifies, empties, prepares. And on the other side of that night, the soul is reborn lighter, freer, more united with God than it ever imagined possible. The serpents in the first mansion, Teresa's psychology of temptation. Teresa describes the first dwellings of the inner castle as places still invaded by venomous creatures, snakes, lizards, vipers that crawl freely. These images are not merely symbolic, they represent unhealed fears, ingrained vices, wounds of the soul that still bleed silently. They are obsessive thoughts, compulsions that imprison, resentments that poison. While the soul remains in the outer dwellings, these creatures have power over it. The danger of these serpents lies not only in the evident sin, but in the illusion of normality. A person becucks to the poison, live we teat, and there is another way to live. Teresa warns, as long as the soul does not recognize these creatures and does not decide to journey inward, it will remain a prisoner of itself. The first step to healing is to see honestly what dwells in the heart, without denial, without justification. But Teresa also brings hope. These serpents lose their power as the soul progresses towards the inner mansions. The closer to God, the less power temptations have. The divine light that dwells in the center of the castle illuminates the dark corners, expelling the shadows, healing the wounds. The spiritual journey is not about immediate perfection, but about constant movement, leaving the outer mansions and walking, step by step, towards the center where God awaits with infinite love. Why detachment heals Teresa's radical teaching on letting go. Teresa teaches that attachment is the root of almost all spiritual suffering. It's not about coldness or indifference, but about inner freedom, the capacity to love without possessing, to desire without enslaving, to live without being bound by results. The attached heart lives in tension, fear of losing, aim rolling, not succeeding. But the detached heart rests in God, trusting that everything that comes is grace, and everything that goes is also grace. Teresian detachment doesn't mean abandoning people or responsibilities, but letting go of the need for things to be as we want them to be. It's renouncing the illusion of control, the demand that life give us permanent security. Teresa lived this radically. She founded convents without money. Trusted in God when everything seemed impossible, even let go of her own mystical experiences, knowing that they shouldn't become attachments. Detachment creates space for God to act, for life to flow, for true love to happen. Those who practice detachment discover an inexplicable peace. Disappointments hurt less, losses don't destroy, changes don't terrify. The soul learns to live with open hands, offering everything to God and receiving everything as a gift. Teresa teaches, detachment doesn't impoverish life, but enriches it. It frees the heart to truly love, without fear, without possession, without conditions. And in this freedom, the soul finds a peace that the world cannot give or take away. The silkworm and the butterfly, Teresa's symbol of soul transformation, Teresa offers one of the most beautiful images of spiritual transformation. The soul is like a silkworm weaving its own cocoon, nourished by the leaves of prayer, the sacraments, and life in God. It works patiently until it is completely enclosed in this cocoon of silence and surrender. Inside, in total darkness, something mysterious happens. The old creature dies and, from this death a butterfly is born. Free, light, capable of flying to heights the silkworm never imagined. This death in the cocoon is the death of the ego, of free will, of everything the soul thought it was. It is a painful, solitary process, incomprehensible to those on the outside. The person feels they are losing themselves, that they are disappearing. But Teresa assures it is not destruction, it is metamorphosis. God is working in secret, undoing the old form to create something new, something that participates in divine life itself. The cocoon is a place of death and resurrection. When the butterfly emerges, it no longer recognizes its former life. Everything has changed desires, priorities, the way of loving. The transformed soul lives in freedom, no longer bound to earthly things, but able to fly between the human and the divine. Teresa teaches, whoever accepts entering the cocoon of contemplation, whoever allows themselves to die to themselves, will discover that God was preparing wings, and these wings will carry the soul to places that only love can reach. Saint Teresa's battle with fear, how she overcame spiritual doubt. Teresa lived tormented by fear. Fear of being deceived, fear that her mystical experiences were illusions of the devil, fear of the judgment of others, fear of her own weakness. She confessed her visions to theologians who frightened her even more, saying that she might be possessed. Doubt haunted her. Does God really speak to me? Or am I just creating fantasies? This fear almost paralyzed her, almost made her give up on the inner path. But Teresa learned to discern. She discovered that true experiences of God bring profound peace, humility, growing love, inner strength even when they are frightening at first. Illusions, on the other hand, leave restlessness, spiritual pride, and lasting confusion. Teresa teaches, the soul should not blindly trust every experience, but neither should it reject everything out of fear. It is necessary to seek wise guidance, observe the fruits, and above all trust that God does not abandon those who seek Him sincerely. Over time, Teresa overcame her fear through trust. She learned to surrender even her doubts to God, knowing that He is greater than all uncertainties. The true inner voice was confirmed by the fruits: more charity, more peace, more courage to serve. Teresa teaches, spiritual fear is normal, but it should not govern the soul. God is not a deceiver. He tenderly guides those who approach him with a sincere heart. And the peace that comes from him is unmistakable. The seventh mansion. What happens when the soul unites with God? The seventh mansion is the center of the castle. Place, le marriage permanent. Union of the soul with God. Teresa describes this state as an unshakable certainty of the divine presence dwelling within. No longer as a visitor, but as an eternal resident. The soul lives in constant peace, even amidst external tribulations. It is not the absence of suffering, but the presence of God that sustains everything. It is as if two candles merged into a single flame, distinct, but inseparable. In this dwelling, the soul experiences profound integration. Inner divisions are healed, contradictions are resolved, and the person lives in harmony with themselves, with God, and with the world. There is no longer a struggle between prayer and action, contemplation and service. Everything becomes one. Teresa lived this. She founded convents, traveled, wrote, administered, and at the same time remained in constant union with God. The seventh mansion is not an escape from the world, but a transfiguration of one's entire life through the divine presence. Whoever reaches this dwelling discovers a peace that surpasses all understanding. It is not permanent ecstasy, but a silent certainty that is present in a veriting, a breath. Teresa teaches, this union is the destiny of every soul that perseveres on the inner path. It is not a privilege of the few, but a universal calling. God awaits in the center of the castle, waiting for each soul to traverse the mansions and come to dwell with him forever in the intimacy of eternal love. Teresa of Avila did not live in an easy time, and neither do you. She faced illness, persecution, terrible doubts, endless nights of spiritual solitude, and yet she found God at the center of it all. Not because she was special, but because she persevered. Because she chose to enter her inner castle day after day, even when it seemed empty. Because she trusted that God was present, even when she felt nothing. And you can do the same. Each teaching Teresa left behind is an invitation. Leave the outer dwellings where the serpents of fear and anxiety reign. Olquinoir. Enter into silence. Allow God to empty you of everything that is not him, so that he can fill you with all that he is. Logique itinoisibut and in the end, you will discover that you were never alone. God was always at the center, waiting for you to return home. Now, it's your turn to answer. Will you continue living in the outer realms, distracted, anxious, empty? Or will you accept Teresa's invitation and begin the journey inward, where true peace dwells? Which of these Teresian truths touched your heart most deeply? Which one will you apply to your life today? Share in the comments your experience may be a light for another soul walking in darkness. And if this content brought hope to your heart, subscribe to the channel. Here, we will continue exploring the teachings of the great Catholic mystics, bringing ancient wisdom to heal the modern soul. Because faith in God is not an escape from reality, it is the only way to traverse it with peace, courage, and love. Teresa triumphed, and you will too. Under the wings of the Almighty, you are safe. You always have been. You always will.